The clock that counts backwards. In the center of the old town of Ravensshire stood a clock tower that no one spoke about anymore. It rose higher than the church, older than the oldest house, its stones darkened by centuries of rain and time. Most clocks ticked forward, measuring the future second by second. But this one moved in the opposite direction. Its hands crept backward. People noticed it, of course. They always had. As children, they would stand in the square and watch the second hand slide the wrong way, feeling a strange chill even on warm afternoons. As adults, they learned to avoid looking at it too long. And as elders, they whispered that the clock was not broken. It was remembering. No one knew who built it. Records said the tower existed before Ravensshire itself, before roads, before even the river had changed its course. The clock face was carved with symbols no one could read anymore, and beneath it, engraved into the stone, were the words, "Time does not forgive. It only returns." For most of their lives, the people of Ravensshire ignored the clock. They went about their business, grew old, buried their dead, and let the strange tower stand as nothing more than a curiosity. Until the day it chose someone. Ethan Hale was a watchmaker. Not the romantic kind from stories, but a quiet man in his early 30s who repaired broken wristwatches, dusty grandfather clocks, and pocket watches that had not ticked in decades. His shop sat at the edge of the town square, directly across from the clock tower. Every day, he heard its backward ticking. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Except it was reversed, as if time itself was inhaling instead of exhaling. Ethan had grown up with that sound. His father had been a watchmaker too, and his father before him. Their shop had always faced the tower, as though fate had placed them there on purpose. When Ethan was a child, he once asked his father why the big clock moved the wrong way. His father had gone quiet and said only, "Some things are not meant to be fixed." Ethan never forgot that. Years later, on a rain-soaked evening when the streets were empty and the sky pressed low with thunderclouds, Ethan heard something different from the tower. Not ticking. Calling. It was a low, resonant hum, vibrating through the glass of his shop windows, through the metal gears on his work table, through the bones in his chest. The air itself seemed to tremble. Without knowing why, he locked his door and crossed the square. The clock tower door, which had been sealed for decades, stood open. The air inside was cold and smelled of dust and oil and ancient stone. A spiral staircase wound upward, disappearing into darkness. And from above came the sound, not ticking now, but a slow, deep heartbeat. Ethan climbed. With every step, memories pressed against him. Not images, but feelings, regret, sorrow, longing. It was as if the tower itself was filled with the emotions of countless lives. At the top, he found the clock's mechanism. It was enormous, a cathedral of gears and pendulums and glowing symbols. And at its center hung a small, ordinary-looking pocket watch, suspended in the air by threads of light. The backward clock was not driven by metal. It was driven by that watch. As Ethan approached, the watch opened on its own. Inside, instead of numbers, there were moments. His moments. He saw himself at 12, standing in a hospital hallway, hearing the doctor say his mother would not wake up. He saw himself at 17, walking away from his best friend after a bitter argument, words said that could never be taken back. He saw himself at 25, watching the woman he loved leave, because he was too afraid to follow. The watch pulsed. A voice spoke, not aloud, but directly into his mind. Time has chosen you. Ethan staggered back. Chosen me for what? To remember what should not have been lost. The watch's hands began to move faster, backward, faster than any clock had ever moved. And the world dissolved. Ethan opened his eyes to sunlight. He was standing in the town square. But it was not the Ravensshire he knew. The buildings were newer. The paint was brighter. The clock tower looked younger. And across the square, a woman was laughing. His mother. Alive. Not a memory. Not a vision. Real. The clock had taken him back. Panic and wonder battled inside him. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, to scream. But something in the air warned him, this was not a gift without cost. A whisper followed him wherever he went. You may change one moment. Only one. Choose. Ethan realized the truth. The clock did not simply move backward. It allowed a single thread of time to be rewoven, but only once, and never without consequence. Was he meant to save his mother? Or mend the broken friendship? Or follow the woman he loved? Every choice would reshape the future. And every future had a price. Before he could decide, the tower appeared again, rising from the ground like a mirage. Inside, the voice explained. This clock was built by those who believed time itself could be corrected. They failed. But the mechanism endured. It waits for souls heavy with regret. It grants one return, one correction, and then it moves on. Moves on where? Ethan asked. To the next bearer. To the next wound in the fabric of time. And what happens to me? Silence. Then, you will live with what you choose. Ethan spent days, or what felt like days, in the past, watching the moments that had shaped his life. He followed his younger self. He listened to conversations that had once seemed insignificant but now carried the weight of destiny. He saw how one harsh word had led to years of silence. How one moment of fear had destroyed a future. How one delay had allowed death to arrive first. He understood something terrible and beautiful. Time was not cruel. People were. And time simply recorded their choices. At last, he stood in the hospital hallway again, hearing the doctor speak. His mother lay beyond the door, slipping away. The clock whispered, "This is the moment." He could stop it. He could change the treatment. He could demand another test. He could save her. But then he saw something else, a future where she lived, but he never became who he was meant to be. Where the watch shop never existed. Where the woman he loved never met him. Where the town itself slowly fell into ruin. Saving one life unraveled many others. So Ethan walked away from the hospital door. And instead, he went to a park bench where a teenage boy sat alone. His best friend. The argument that had ended their friendship had not happened yet. Ethan sat beside him and said the words he never had. "I was wrong. And I'm afraid. But I don't want to lose you." The boy looked up, surprised. And time shifted. The world folded inward like a closing book. Ethan found himself back in the present, standing in the clock tower. The pocket watch fell into his hand, now silent. The great backward clock slowed, and then stopped. Outside, Ravensshire remained the same. But inside Ethan, everything was different. His mother was still gone. But his best friend was alive, in his life again. Because of that reconnect ion, countless small choices had changed. Careers, relationships, even the woman he loved had re-entered his world through paths that had once been closed. The clock had not given him perfection. It had given him peace. The voice spoke one last time. Time cannot be mastered. It can only be understood. The tower door closed. The clock never moved again. Years later, Ethan became known not just as a repairer of clocks, but as a man who listened. People came to him with broken watches and broken lives. He never spoke of the tower, never mentioned the backward clock. But sometimes, when the shop was quiet, he would take out a small pocket watch with no numbers, only memories. And he would whisper to it, "Thank you, for teaching me that time doesn't go backward to erase our pain, but to show us what truly matters before it's too late." And in the square, the old clock tower stood silent, its work done. Waiting. For the next soul brave enough to face the past.